Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis. Pulse 95.
Join the conversation on the Morning Majlis. You might see some people wearing pink, and I've decided to wear pink as well. Decided to, this morning, cheekily get one T-shirt ironed as well. Make sure it's not too creased. As we are joining on the radio live with a spokesperson from GEMS Education to talk to us about the world of anti-bullying, because today, as per the United Nations, we observe the anti-bullying day. In some countries, they do it in February.
They do it in February, and also in New Zealand, they do it also in May, but 18th, I believe right? May 18th. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's good. The more, the merrier.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a very topical discussion and something that often gets ignored. And to talk to us about this, we've got the Vice President of Safeguarding and Protection of Children, or Child Protection at GEMS School, Sara Hedger. A very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Well, it's great to have you on air with us. And no, we're all wearing pink. You're wearing blue as well. People sometimes wear blue for the anti-bullying. Talk to us about why is it important to celebrate it every year or observe it every year, the concept of anti-bullying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've just alluded to it there, where you said the more the merrier. I think we all know that the more we talk about subjects and kind of, we call it shining a light on it, you know, the more we're able to talk openly about it, the better it is that we're able to tackle it. So any opportunity where we can really focus on something as important as anti-bullying, we like to take advantage of. So the UN Anti-Bullying Day originated in Canada in 2012, and the significance of the colour pink was around a young boy who was bullied for wearing a pink shirt on the first day of school. So we take that advantage to start these conversations. So I'm so happy to be able to have that conversation today.
Well, Sara, we're definitely happy to have you with us as well, to have this amazing conversation, very important one. But looking through or to the roots of this problem, this is a problem everywhere, really. It's just not just in schools, it's also in workplaces, it's also at home. So looking at the underlying causes of it, what do you think are the causes of bullying in general?
I think it's a difficult one. There's no real single answer to it, but certainly we do know from research that often, people who show bullying behaviours may have been bullied themselves, although not always. It can be an expression of anger or frustration. And certainly when we think of some of those added challenges during the pandemic where, people may not have had the usual abilities to express themselves, that can be quite a challenge as well. And I think ultimately at the bottom of it is you mentioned adults as well, because absolutely it's not just a child issue, it's not just a school issue, this is a society issue. And in places where there's no culture of respect, bullying behaviour can grow and manifest, and we want to make sure that we get the message out that respecting ourselves and respecting our others is the basis of everything that we should be doing.
And Sara, as someone who had obviously gone to school at a younger age, the notion of bullying, defining what bullying is, it's something that can be tricky, because I feel a lot of bullies themselves don't see their behavior as bullying. And it gets muddled, and I think that makes it a lot more difficult for bullied people to speak out about it. For instance, a lot of the bullying is framed as a joke, and if you don't have a sense of humor, well, tough, it's on you. And they keep doing it over and over again. So if you could define bullying to us in a clear way, because I think that would really help tackle the problem very effectively.
Perfect. Okay, so the general accepted definition of bullying is a repeated, often aggressive behaviour, and this is the key bit, intended to harm another person or a group of people. So as I've said before, it applies to adults or children, there's no difference there. But I think sometimes, and I think you're absolutely spot on with what you've just said, sometimes we can get a little bit confused with what bullying is and what bullying isn't. We know, working with thousands of children, that children will have relationship challenges. Good grief, adults have relationship challenges, getting on, falling out with people, and then mending those relationships and moving forward when you've had a conflict or argument is a key part of growing up and understanding our place in the world and being good, good citizens, etc. But I think, therefore, when it tips over to really repeating that behaviour and causing harm to others, that's a key thing. So we can help this by having those open conversations like we are now, as we always do in all schools, to help that message get out there.
So what are the methods and the, let's just say, the techniques that are used to kind of control such events if it happens? For example, are there awareness programs that are being taken out in schools and institutions? Because it's a major issue. It's not just, as we said, it's not just in schools. Should we have more awareness programs around? Do we have it? Do we have enough of it?
Yeah, I would always love to see more. There's never enough for me. However, so some of the things that we do think about, and some programs that we're already in place are, and you might reflect, if there are parents listening to this, reflecting on what their experiences are. So certainly in GEMS, when I've just spoken to you there about, that safeguarding and wellbeing culture in our schools and workplaces needs to be really positive. So what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that awareness is raised and that message is continually reinforced? So all schools will have policies and procedures in place to tackle anti-bullying, absolutely. Make sure you know what they are. How does it work? What's the impact of it for our children? We take an approach where we have adult-led programs, of course, but actually a lot of our work is around student to student. So making sure that there are lots of opportunities for children to tell not just trusted adults, but actually peers who are trained to help them to find a way into reporting and sharing those concerns. So one of the ways we do this is through our mentoring programs. Certainly mental health first aid is a wonderful UAE initiative that goes across all our Emirates, where we're able to access accredited international training for our teams, who are then able to work with qualified counsellors, etc., to support others within school. That's been really successful. And I'm really happy to say that, when we were, sometimes I think when things go wrong, and particularly around cyberbullying, etc., we as adults and parents have a tendency to go, oh no, iPad's got to go, the laptop goes off the internet. And whilst I completely understand that reaction, and it can be, it can be emotive, it can be scary for parents supporting their children, for children themselves. Actually, what we need to do, the internet is here to stay, and what we need to be doing is educating and helping our children to be making good decisions online. So what we've done, and certainly it's hot off the press because this is absolutely brand new. We've teamed up with an organisation in the UK to pilot safe social media. So GoBobble's something we'll be using. So whilst we're talking to our children, working with parents, working with the students, and talking to our children about how safe choices can be made online, then they get the ability to practice that as well in a very safe environment where content is kind of pre-judged, and if it's okay, then it's uploaded. So creating those safe places is really key, but children need the ability to practice that, those skills, just as they would learn to write or kick a football, etc. We need to be aware that the internet's really not going anywhere.
And Sarah, this is something you've touched upon, the adults and the role they play at schools. For bullied kids in many schools, going to or speaking to adults and trusting them by speaking to them to help them with their bullying, it can be a very challenging task. And a lot of times it's counterintuitive and the bullying gets much worse. Can you talk to us about the qualities that the adults working in schools need to embody for children to trust them with bullying, and also for them to play a role in ending this and helping solve the problem?
Definitely. I think one of the first things I've been working in safeguarding and child protection for 23 years, and I would always say it all comes down to quality of relationships. So teachers, and I'm not just talking about teachers, I'm talking about adults. So we're talking about, training and having real awareness with everybody, from anybody who helps keep the school clean, the school principals, the people who work in the canteen, to be a listening ear. So being somebody who actively listens to students. There needs to be clear escalation routes, so ways that information can be taken to the right person to get the right outcome. But the qualities around that is absolutely, having empathy, understanding the problem in the first place and how to identify that. Because sometimes, as you quite rightly say, a child might not want to just go straight to an adult. Sometimes, and we often see it, an adult will start to become curious because they know the children so well. They'll start to see maybe a change in behaviour, etc., and then they'll start to really be curious about what might be going on for that child. And again, that quality of relationship and opening that conversation with, I've noticed that, it can be really helpful to take that first step into getting the help that they need.
Now, Sarah, I'm going to reveal this to you and some of our listeners that I am a GEMS graduate. Shout out to the kids from Jumeirah College. We're all very well behaved. Very well behaved. No one's bullying each other at all. I'm sure some of you JC crew are listening. Now, what I'd like to check on, because you've said that you've been working in child protection for 23 years. From when we were back in school, bullying was resorted to silly pranks and sticking chewing gum on someone's chair or whatever. But have you seen bullying evolve to a large degree over the years? And specifically when there's online learning nowadays, has it changed to a certain degree?
I think if I go back, at the risk of appearing and being very old, I certainly think I was a child who was bullied at school, physically and verbally. So certainly in those days, in the kind of 1980s, and I was at school in the UK, the response to bullying was very different. There wasn't the awareness. There certainly wasn't any of the training and the focus that is on what we see now. I know there always has been bullying, and it is a behaviour that we've seen in every demographic, every social group, every gender. But what I think I would say that has developed is the move from, or the spread, if you like, from that direct contact, face-to-face type of bullying into the more online world. And obviously with the pandemic and lockdowns and all of the uncertainty around that, that I would say is certainly where we're putting our attention. Hence, looking at alternatives for safe social media, curriculum, looking at how we teach our children about this, because as we know, and certainly if you're parents yourself, you'll see that environment change so rapidly that we absolutely need to be up to date, understand what's going on for our children. But certainly that cyber online element is where those changes have definitely been seen.
And because it's very difficult to police this cyber world as well, is there any solution that we can look at? Because the physical ones that we saw, we could police them, we could find out and identify it. Do you think stricter penalties, such as longer suspensions, or longer the students are expelled from schools, the bullies specifically, is that a solution, or do we have to work something around it?
I think there's two parts to it, really. One is the prevention, and one is then what those solutions might be. Because again, we need to look at the problem as a whole. It's not just a bully issue or a bullied issue, victim issue. It's not just a school or a workplace issue. It's not a teacher or a parent issue. This is a social issue. So I think coming together with, government level, and the UAE has done some incredible work around child protection over the last few years since I've been here, where they're really starting to open those subjects up so that there are clearer policies and procedures in place for schools and workplaces to be able to work safely with children. And I think always prevention is better than cure. So my route and my role is always to, give that advice and guidance on what might work for students, and certainly education of students, education of parents, awareness of raising, and having a very clear expectation around society. Because if I could give parents any tips at all about how to kind of help with this, and not just parents but adults in general, being a good role model to children and modeling respect for yourself, respect for others, respect between family members, etc., and opening those conversations with children, so that if they do make a poor choice about behaviour online, they can be supported and help to make sure that their behaviour changes and they're not going to do it again.
Well, certainly there's lots of wonderful thoughts to take back, and hopefully we do have a combined effort in tackling these social issues. Sara Hedger, thank you for joining us, Vice President of Safeguarding and Child Protection at GEMS Education. A very insightful discussion this morning.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Well, stay tuned to Pulse 95. There's lots to get through. We'll be back again right after the news headlines, so stay tuned to Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of the Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.